Hi everyone, it's Leslie from Colouring and Tangling. It's been a little while since I've done a video tutorial, but I have just brought out this grayscale Christmas book, Christmas colouring book from illustrations that I've done, digital illustrations that I've done on Procreate, and I decided I loved them so much that colourists might really enjoy colouring them using pencils, paints. Now I'm a big fan of watercolour pencils and I use them a lot in the studio with the kids that I teach. These are Faber Castell. They're really not a terribly expensive brand and they're so versatile. So let me show you how I colour a grayscale drawing, and Mandy, this one's for you. Merry Christmas. So it's all been grayscaled and you can see that there's a variety of tones here. You've got really pale areas, mid-greys, going right up to almost black. So the secret to colouring grayscale is not being too heavy-handed and not using too much colour, and allowing you know, the pre-shaded areas to sort of help you show through a little bit. We've got an additional challenge in this one with the snow. So it's going to be really difficult to paint around all the little snowflakes, and you can actually add those afterwards with Posca markers, or this one here is a Uni-ball signo pen. I have a lot of trouble getting these to work today because they're pretty old. They've been sitting in the studio for a while. So you can use whatever colouring media you've got on hand. I've got some nice watercolour brushes, I've got my Faber Castell pencils, and I've got a little tub of water. And we're doing this one which is called Fox and Robins. And it's a lovely red fox with some cute little robins. Now we don't get robins in Australia, but as you can tell from my accent coming from Scotland, I used to love Christmas in Scotland. I used to love watching the snow fall and seeing the little robins with the little red breasts. It was just beautiful, lovely memories. So let's start. I'm going to start doing the background. I'm not going to do the whole illustration, but we'll start with the background, and I'm going to do a sort of bluey colour, blue aquas for the sky. And we'll start a little section. And I've got some different shades. I've got a sort of aqua green in the middle, dark blue, and a pale blue. So have all your colours ready. You want to have a variety of colours when you're doing this. And I'm not even going to attempt, I'll try and attempt a little bit to avoid the little snowflakes. So just a gentle touch. And where it's lighter in the picture, you're going to make your colours lighter or choose a lighter shade. And it's really quite easy to do actually. I'm not going to do the whole thing as I said, but I'm just going to show you how this works. So with watercolour pencils, it's really two artworks in one. You have to use the pencil dry first, and then you add the water, and that dissolves the pencil and turns it into paint. They're magical. They're really one of my favourite tools in the studio to use, or media to use. They're just gorgeous. So I'll do this little section here and we'll get down to doing the fox. So not too heavy-handed. Let some of that grayscale, you know, dictate what you're doing. Let some of it show through if you want. When you put the water on, it will all blend together. So it's getting a little bit darker in this section here, and I'm going to swap to maybe this sort of aqua colour. We'll vary it a little bit, so not too heavy. And if you want to merge the colours together, you just tickle the darker colour into the lighter colour. I guess it's all to do with how heavy-handed you are, the pressure that you're applying. So not too heavy. Just take your time and enjoy it. You know, don't rush it. Just really enjoy the process. So we've got a bit of a sort of deeper, darker aqua greeny colour, tickling it into the blue that I've just done. It's nice to have a little bit of variety. So it's entirely up to you what colours you use, of course, but we're trying to aim for a wintry sky. And if you're in Australia like I am, you won't really see many wintry, snowy skies. I haven't seen snow in Australia since I've been here. but there are parts of Australia where we do get snow. And it's getting a little bit darker still down here, so I'm going to go with this really dark aqua blue. Again, not too heavy, just tickling it on, and do a little tickle to merge it into that previous colour, coming down. It's actually really hot today. It's been hot for the whole weekend, and in the Redlands area where I live in Queensland, and the fan's been blasting pretty much all day. And I know that in other countries like the UK and the States, you probably in your winter and it's lovely and cool. It's interesting how we're all experiencing different weather conditions where we live. So that's that little section there, just to show you how you can vary the colour, you can vary the intensity, and you're still allowing that grayscale to work for you. So let's put, you're not really supposed to do this, but just a word of warning about working with the watercolour pencils. Because I'm doing a demo, I don't have time to do the whole grayscale drawing or painting. But it's better to put a whole section, get a whole section done first, because if you add the water and then you stop and it dries, you actually get a hard edge. But for the sake of the demonstration, so that you don't have to watch me, for hours on end colouring this whole thing, I'll just put the water on this little section here. But it's important to do a whole section at once, and then put the water on, and then you can go down and we'll try and do the whole hat and then the whole foxy's head, and then put the water on. Otherwise you'll get a dry edge. So a range of brushes are really handy to have. These are watercolour brushes, so you want the nice round tip ones, the good quality ones if you can afford them. And I've got a range of sizes here. So I'm going to choose this medium size. Got some water off camera, you can just see it. And not too much water on your brush, and it's easier to start putting the water on the lighter shades first and then blend it in. So I'm just dipping it into the water, and it's blending. You might not be able to see it terribly clearly, but it's actually blending it and dissolving the colour pencil and turning it into beautiful watercolour. It's a little bit scary at first because you don't really know what's going to happen, and you just want to take your time. Let's go into this darker blue. You can see it more clearly on the camera now, this darker blue. I'll try and go around these little white areas and just enjoy. Now we've got some really fiddly areas here with the trees, so you'd have to go down a brush size for that. It's quite fiddly. So as I said earlier, you want to get all your colour pencil work done first before you actually start applying the water. So that bit's actually looking really quite lovely, and after putting the water on you can actually still see the stars and the snowflake, well they're snowflakes really. You can still see them coming through, so you don't need to be too particular about avoiding them. Let's do another section. Let's give him a nice bright hat, so let's get a couple of reds happening here. Students have really been using these pencils quite frequently, and I noticed that when I went into them today they're going down. Okay, so let's get, I'm not even worrying, there's a white pattern in this hat, but I'm not worrying about that, and I will show you how you can get that back again with Posca pens, although I have been having trouble getting them to work today. So looking at this, it's a little bit darker here, it's darker at the edges and a little bit darker above the fur. So we'll just use this one shade of red. Watch out for a little robin's feet. And I'll show you how I blend to get that sort of darker effect on the hat. So just don't get too heavy. I think that's my advice for you when you're doing grayscale. Otherwise you'll just completely obliterate the illustration underneath really, and we don't really want that. So let's do, this is a sort of purpley, I can't find the dark red that I was after. This has got a little bit of purple in it. So when you're doing your blend, you want to just be really soft and gentle and just tickle the darker colour into the lighter colour. You don't really want to see where one colour joins another colour, you want to merge them together, and that's just a little bit of practice. And putting the darks on, it's all very subtle actually. It's a little bit dark, a little bit of shadow, so I'm doing this sort of shadowy areas in this darker sort of purpley red. We'll do the whole hat as it's actually happening quite fast. We'll go back into our lighter red. I hope you love this. This series they're called Festive Friends, the collection, and there's 5 different illustrations, and they come as colouring pages and a set of cards, foldable cards, so you could even whip up some Christmas cards for your friends and your family using the pack. And if you are spending hours colouring the illustrations, rather than give away your originals, a really good idea would be to scan them if you've got a scanner, or just try and take some really good photos with your phone and keep the original and give away the prints, the scanned prints. That way you've got a copy for yourself with all of your work, as it would be a shame to give away the original. So I'm just finishing off doing some little, you want some variation in your colours, you don't want to put just one colour all over. So that's the little hat done. It's a little Santa hat. Let's get some water on this, and again I'm going to start with the lighter area. Oh, that's nice. I never ever ever tire of doing this, putting the water on. It's so satisfying. You've got to try and be neat, because you don't want the different colours to go into spoil the different areas. So back we go. It's quite forgiving actually, because you're still seeing that grey underneath. And what's actually interesting, I haven't done a grayscale for ages, coloured a grayscale, and much to my delight, the patterning, you can actually still see the subtle patterns and detail in the hat, and you can still see the snowflakes coming through, so that's good. We don't need to worry about going in behind them, which would be very tricky. So there's his little hat, and this is a slightly darker shade here, and you can tickle in some colour on the fur. We might put a little bit of, because it wouldn't just be totally, it wouldn't just be totally white. There would be little bits of, oh, that was a bit drastic, but we'll get the water on that. There would be little bits of that colour sort of coming through. So let's dilute this down a little bit. That was a little bit of a boo-boo there, but when it's all dry it should look okay. Just flooding it with water to dilute it. So a little bit of colour in the fur is quite nice, because you might be thinking, well, how do I actually paint white areas? And really nothing is totally white and nothing is totally black in nature anyway. So it's nice to put the colours that you're using around about the white areas and just add a little bit of that colour into the white, but just really, really subtle. And you just get more realism by doing that. Okay, so we've done some of the sky, we've done the hat. Let's do some of the fox. So I've looked out some browns and some rusts and some orangey colours here for the fur, and we've got our reds. So I like to start with the lighter colour. Now we want to make this look like fur, so we want to try and apply the colour in strokes. So when I did this illustration, I actually used a brush, a digital brush, and did it in strokes and watched the direction that I was going in. And I like to work with the light colour first. So you can see here, it's lighter here, really soft and pale here, and then there's dark flecks going through. So that will determine where we put our light and our dark colours, if that makes sense. So let's start with this orangey colour, and I'm just doing little, you might think it's going to take forever, but actually it doesn't. You'll be surprised at how quickly you can colour these. So rather than do a single colour all over, I'm actually doing little flicks of colour to try and get that fur effect. And this is the lightest colour. Now the greyscale will do a lot of the work for you, which is underneath, and it will guide you. Some colourists, you know, think possibly just use one colour and let the grey come through, but I don't think that's enough. I think you really do need to, yes, you've got all the different tones underneath, but I think you really do need to build up your colour as well. And as I say, the way I colour might not be the same way you colour. We're all different and there's no right or wrong. Just do what works for you. But I'm just giving you tips that I have learned along the way. So little short strokes when we're doing fur. And now I'm going on to a slightly darker colour. I might go with this sort of, what colour will I do next? Maybe a sort of reddish colour like I did in the hat. Now this time I'm just picking out, I'm just doing little flicks, and I'm just concentrating on darker bits that I can see. There's a little dark shadow under there. Hopefully this is making sense. If you've never coloured a greyscale before, you're actually picking up all the clues that lie in that drawing underneath. So tickle, 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 just getting all these little, again, just doing little flicks, building it up, building it up, building it up. I've got some darks here. Flick, flick, flick. It's just a quick sort of flicky technique from the wrist. And it's really up to you how much detail you want to put in this. So that's the mid colour. I tend to suggest to my students a minimum of 3 shades to build up a bit of realism, so light, mid and dark, and have all your pencils all organised. So we might choose a darker one for this, so that's my 3. I got that orangey one, I went for the red, and we want a darker one. So we'll maybe go with these 3 and we'll start to do the darks. So this is the final flicky, just where it's dark. It does change obviously when you put the water on, it intensifies it. But I am noticing that on the greyscale it's not as noticeable. Normally when you do the watercolours onto just a completely white background and then you put the water on, the colours actually really intensify, but it's not just as noticeable actually on the greyscale. So all I'm doing here is I'm looking at the darker areas on our fox, and I'm using a brownie, it's actually a warm brown, it's not a chocolate brown, it's a warm brown, and that's the final colour for our fox, just being guided by the greyscale drawing underneath. So it's quite a lot of fun actually. I tend not to do traditional colouring. I've gone completely digital now in my work, and I'm really enjoying that, but it's actually nice to bring out the pencils again and sit and enjoy doing this. Okay, so that fox is starting to build up all the strands of fur, and when you put the water on, we might go down a brush size actually. I'm going to go down to the smaller brush size because we're doing fur, and again we want to try and put the water on in little flicks as well. Be careful of the direction. So that's what I was saying, it's almost 2, well, it is really 2 artworks in one. You're putting the colour on dry and then you're doing the whole thing again with the water. The greyscale is very forgiving in that if you don't really notice mistakes because that greyscale is underneath. If you were doing this onto just a completely white background without the shadowing, you know, it would be, you'd see all your errors, but it's actually very forgiving. It's cool. Alright, let's go to the darker bit down here. There we are. Now I just want to do the eye. I love doing eyes, and it really brings the animal alive. Now we could go a completely different colour, but I think I will just, I'm just going off camera to grab a yellow. Okay, I want his eye to be quite luminous, so we'll start with a yellow. This is a really bright sort of canary yellow, just to get the brightness in here. And then I'm going to do the orange. And the reason I put that yellow down first was to try and get a nice bright orange happening. And there is black already, it's probably more of a charcoal grey, but every printer is different, and I don't tend to use solid black anyway in my illustrations, so you may want to actually intensify the black by using a black pencil, and I'll show you what that does. So I'm just adding the orangey red for part of the eye. So to really, you know, bring this eye out a bit more and make it pop, you can actually go over the black in the greyscale and make it a lot stronger, intensify it. So this is the black pencil going on top, and you don't have to do this, obviously you can just accept the greyscale, but it depends how much time, you know, you've got and how much of a perfectionist you are and how far you want to take this. The greyscale is just a guide at the end of the day, really. It's up to you. So I've decided to add a little bit of dark, an actual black pencil, to really bring out that eye. Just doing the dark round about, and it just makes it a lot more intense. You can do little flicks to make it look like fur as well. So that's, you'll see the difference between that eye and that eye just by adding the black colour pencil. You want to get your black nice and sharp. You see I'm doing the little bits of fur on the eye, and we'll do a little bit here. So nice sharp pencils for your detail. Again, you don't have to do this stage, but I think you'll agree that that's really made the eye pop out. But let's just finish off the tutorial with some colour on the eye. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky. If you've got black, you can ruin it by the black smudging into the light colour, so we want to take our time. I probably should have put the water on I was rushing, and I should have put the water on the orangey eyes first actually. I'll try and do it really carefully. So I think my advice would be, don't do what I'm doing. When you're doing the black, get all your water on first and then do the black last, because we don't want the black smudging in. You can leave areas, maybe even the black without the water going on. That's up to you as well. The water will intensify it. This is a little bit scary doing this black. So if you want, you don't have to actually put the water on the black bits if you're finding that a little bit scary. See, it's really changing the, you really need a fine brush. So that might be something to think about. Unless you've got a really steady hand, you may want to just put the black on and not put the water on. So you're just intensifying the colour. Now I hope that helped. If you've purchased the pack, the cards or the pages, hopefully that's helped and given you an understanding of how you can build it up and turn it into your own painting. And if you've got any questions at all, you can email me, Leslie at coloringandtangling.com. Happy to answer any questions. And I hope you love the packs, and Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you for watching. Bye.